Good day everyone, and welcome to our video lecture on how to conduct due diligence before buying land in the Philippines. Ensuring the legality and accuracy of a land title is crucial in any real estate transaction. Today, we will discuss the essential steps you need to take to protect yourself and avoid legal issues. Let us begin this discussion by asking, what is due diligence? Due diligence is a precautionary measure that requires prospective parties to a contract involving titled lands to exercise the diligence of a reasonably prudent person. This involves undertaking measures to ensure the legality of the title and the accurate metes and bounds of the lot embraced in the title. What does it mean? This means that the parties involved in a transaction, especially buyers, should act with the level of care and caution that an ordinary sensible person would exercise in similar circumstances. It's about being thorough and careful to avoid potential problems. The steps in conducting due diligence are outlined in the case of Domingo Realty versus Court of Appeals, decided on January 26, 2007. Let's go through each step in detail. First step, verify the origin, history, authenticity, and validity of the title with the Office of the Registrar of Deeds and the Land Registration Authority. Now, what is the importance of this particular step? This step ensures that the title is legitimate and free from any legal issues or discrepancies. It helps confirm that the property truly belongs to the seller and that there are no encumbrances, liens, or legal disputes associated with it. As a general rule, every person dealing with registered land may safely rely on the correctness of the certificate of title issued therefore and is in no way obligated to go beyond the certificate to determine the condition of the property. This principle is known as the mirror principle, as enunciated in the case of Locsin versus Dizon. This principle entails that a defective title may be the source of a completely legal and valid title, provided that the buyer is an innocent third person who, in good faith, relied on the correctness of the certificate of title, or an innocent purchaser for value. However, for practicality purposes, it is important to go beyond the title. It is imperative to verify the origin, history, or validity of the title, because in one case decided by the Supreme Court, if a land was irregularly registered, the original registration and the subsequent registrations will be void, and the mirror principle will be deemed inapplicable. There is this case decided by the Supreme Court, the Spouses Waping versus Ayala land case. This case tells us that when a land registration decree is marred by severe irregularity that discredits the integrity of the torrent system, the court will not think twice in striking down such illegal title in order to protect the public against unscrupulous and illicit land ownership. Thus, due to the numerous blatant and unjustifiable errors of the original certificate of title in this case, the respective transfer certificates and instruments of conveyances that relied on the anomalous service must also be declared void ab initio. So what is the implication of the case of Waping versus Ayala land? This case tells us that even if you are an innocent purchaser for value or a buyer in good faith, your acquisition of land may be voided if it is found out that the original registration of the land was tainted with irregularities. Thus, the need to verify the origin, history, and validity of the title. Second, there is a need to verify the title in the Office of the Registrar of Deeds to determine whether there are annotations on the title, because sometimes annotations, take for example, notice of lespendence will only be annotated in the title on file with the Registrar of Deeds and not in the owner's duplicate. As explained by Justice Agkawili, annotation of a notice of lespendence at the back of the original copy of the certificate of title on file with the Registrar of Deeds is sufficient to constitute constructive notice to purchasers or other persons subsequently dealing with the same property. Now, if you rely solely on the owner's duplicate, you will not know of whatever annotations there would be. And this is problematic because later on your part as a buyer, you will be bound by the annotations in the title. Second step, Engage the services of a competent and reliable geodetic engineer to verify the boundary, meets and bounds of the lot subject of said title based on the technical description in the said title and the approved survey plans in the Land Management Bureau. What is the importance of this particular step? This step ensures that the physical boundaries of the property match the description in the title. It prevents disputes involving overlapping boundary lines and to also ensure that the buyer is getting the exact piece of land as described. 3. Conduct an actual ocular inspection of the land. Now, why is there a need to conduct an actual ocular inspection? There are two possible reasons. To explain, first, someone might be occupying the lot concerned. Assuming that you bought the land without knowing that someone is occupying the lot because you did not conduct an inspection, it would now be a problem, especially if the occupant would insist in occupying such property. Second, there are certain properties that are outside the commerce of man. Thus, it is essential to know whether the lot concerned is alienable or disposable, or perhaps the property concerned is still alienable or disposable, because there are instances that at first, initially the property was alienable or disposable, but there were certain instances that it became a part of public domain. So to illustrate, take for example, in 2010, person A was able to buy a lot, a property, and then he was able to register that property. So it has an original certificate title number 123. However, in 2020, person A decided to sell the land. However, the land was already submerged underwater. Now here comes person B, an aggressive buyer. Without conducting an ocular inspection, he bought the land. Question: is the sale valid? And can person B transfer the ownership to him? In this particular case, person B might encounter a legal problem because under the law, submerged areas form part of the public domain, and in that state are alienable and outside the commerce of man. So there's really a need to conduct an ocular inspection because you have to determine whether the land there is already submerged underwater or perhaps are already invaded by the waves, such as in the case of Government of the Philippines versus Cabanis, where the Supreme Court ruled that when the property is near the sea and subsequently the sea advances and private properties were now permanently invaded by the waves, the properties so invaded become part of the shore or beach and they then pass to the public domain. So in other words, you have to really conduct an ocular inspection to determine the situation of that property. Was there to determine whether there are occupants there, or to determine whether the property is still alienable or disposable? Because you might, if you will not conduct an ocular inspection, you might later on discover that the property is already submerged. And in that particular case, you cannot own that property because, as decided by the Supreme Court in a catina of cases, it becomes part of public domain and thus already becomes outside the commerce of man. Next, step 4. Inquire from the owners and possessors of adjoining lots with respect to the true and legal owner of the lot in question. What is the importance of this particular step? This step helps confirm the ownership and boundary information from neighboring property owners. It can reveal any ongoing disputes or issues that might not be evident from official documents alone. So owners or possessors of adjoining lot might have information as to whatever is ongoing on the subject property that you want to buy. So this particular step tells us about being Marites 101. 5. Put up signs that said lot is being purchased, leased, or encumbered. And this is related to step number 6, which is to undertake such other measures to make the general public aware that said lot will be the subject to alienation, lease, or encumbrance by the parties. Now, what are the importance or significance of these particular steps? Posting signs on the property serves as public notice of the intended transaction. These steps help alert potential claimants to come forward if they have any interest in the property, thereby reducing the risk of future disputes. It also signals transparency and due process in the transaction. It is important to note, however, that the steps outlined herein are not exclusive. Due diligence is a comprehensive process that might require additional measures depending on the specific circumstances of the property and the transaction. Now, with respect to due diligence, the best course of action when conducting due diligence on a real property transaction is to seek assistance of a competent and qualified professionals like lawyers. Thank you, and that would be all.